Hold on. I know we touched on the United Kingdom earlier, but I'd like to step back there if I may, because they're really, really hurting. It's possible, I've seen varying estimates, but it's possible the crop yields that the United Kingdom is going to be getting from this harvest period are going to be less than half what they normally are.
Last night, flames licking at the curb of an A road in Hampshire. What started as a vehicle fire found a waiting tinderbox in the nearby Heathland of the New Forest. More than 20 drivers abandoned their cars, getting as far away as they could, while firefighters stayed overnight to tackle the blaze. 120 were still fighting it this afternoon, with teams drafted in from all over the country, including Devon, London and Sussex, here drawing water from a local fishing lake.
Do you think the oil crisis will force a massive investment into public transit? No, I think that things are going to collapse. I don't think anyone's going to be... I think we lost the ability to gracefully transition out of... It's pretty bad. You know, I know I harp on it too much. I know I harp on it too much. I'm aware of that. And people, they email me, they leave the YouTube comments. They're like, well, you are just dooming. I'm sorry. I just think literally everybody else in my field is a massive coward. Every politician, every pundit, every YouTuber, live streamer who covers politics, I think they're all massive cowards, because I think that even a cursory familiarity with the developing climate situation would lead one to understand that, basically all political schisms right now, all discussions, all talking points are like, Jesus, I don't know, arguing about land rights as the bubonic plague metastasizes and races across Europe. It's like shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic. It's all irrelevant. Well, I wouldn't say it's irrelevant. There's actually one thing that I think is extremely relevant, and that's getting progressives elected, because the collapse will be bad, but it's not like it's not going to be so, how do I put this? It's not going to be so bad and so immediate that government just stops existing or whatever, right? Progressives in office mean that we can correctly direct blame and begin to rebuild as quickly as possible. It's like, you're preparing, right? You're preparing. Right. Like washing dishes during a house fire, None of the cleaning, none of the chores that you do in the house are going to make much of a difference. But there are things you can do when your house is burning down to make things better, right? You take out the valuables, you take out the pets and the people, right? People are like, but you can't stop the house from burning down. That might be true, yeah, but you can make rebuilding afterwards easier. When the opposite makes sense, wouldn't GOP in office put the blame on them? Nah, if the GOP is in office, they're just going to blame blacks. And the voter, because the average voter is genuinely subhuman, will be like, makes sense. Black voters will be like, okay. Gonna blame Venezuelans, and some fucking guy whose parent is a Venezuelan who made his way up here in 2003 is going to be like, makes sense. Is the collapse you're envisioning just a fall of global trade or actual collapse of countries? Oh, actual collapse of countries, like failed states. Yeah, for sure. For sure. We can't even rebuild bridges, A major climatic event could genuinely, wipe countries off the map, trade-wise. Very possible. All it would take is a couple of ports to be destroyed, some key crossings, bridges, a few floodplains, overburdened, and all of this is going to happen. It's guaranteed to happen. I don't know if we can rebuild anymore. You know what food's going to cost next year?
Is 6 kilometres long, and every minute it pumps 1,500 litres of water up to the fire over there. It's now the size of about 140 football pitches, but it's tonight, when the ground is at its driest, that firefighters are most worried about it spreading.
New Forest Park authorities say extreme weather is putting one of the most precious habitats in the UK at risk.
It's one of the most
all of it. It's all of it. The whole fucking country is under drought and on fire right now.
important areas in Western Europe for Heathland in particular, and we have all 6 reptile species here in the UK on the New Forest. Birds like Dartford warbler, migrants like nightjars, plants like sundew. All of these are rare nationally and internationally. We have ancient woodlands that can't be replaced if they go up in flame. So from an international perspective, it's a really important place, the New Forest.
Other blazes have been burning around the country. 2 bungalows were destroyed by a fire which spread from a field in Diss in Norfolk. No serious injuries were reported. This is Holme Fen in Cambridgeshire, where firefighters have been working to control the flames for 3 days. And this area near Llanganada Reservoir in South Wales has been burning since Friday, with crews enlisting help from the sky to try to contain it. The smoke from the moorland could be smelt by people waking up in Bristol this morning.
Sure, Andy Burnham will fix this. He still hasn't mentioned it.
Record temperatures this summer have left the ground parched, cracked and broken, with water reserves at lows despite record periods of rain earlier this year.
But ultimately, the answer to this is another long-term fix. The answer is around infrastructure. It's around ensuring that we've got the water infrastructure, including reservoirs. Obviously, that's the top of everybody's list, but there's a huge amount more infrastructure that goes beyond that. I mean, I'm very lucky. I sit in the northeast of England where we have a lot of water, actually. It's not because we've had a lot of rain. It's because we've got great reservoir capacity.
It's also occurring here, too. A lot more dead big leaf maple trees. Yep, that shit ain't coming back. And a lot of people coped with the belief that once this started hitting first world countries, things would change, but basically no coverage of this. Still, you know, not just the United Kingdom. Did you know there are water restrictions across the vast majority of France right now? Did you know that? Were you even aware? Has anyone talked about it? Have you heard about that? I mean, the planet, you know, wealthy first world countries are being scoured from the sky, like by a heat lamp. A significant portion of the agriculturally useful land in France has a water saturation in the upper crust of the soil, down around 25% of what it's expected to be around this time of year. We're talking about the desertification, not just of the northern Mediterranean, but up against the damn English Channel.
But reservoirs take time to build, and yet another heat wave is on the way, with temperatures this week expected to hit the mid-30s. Half of England and all of Wales was already in drought, and today that was revised up, with 71% of England now affected. The UK is starting to feel the hotter, drier summers.
The humidity in New York City is officially at rainforest levels. Yes, and the West Nile is going to show up there too, if it hasn't already.
Climate scientists have long warned of, while the EU's weather service Copernicus confirmed June and July to be the hottest on record in Western Europe.
West Nile virus activity has nearly doubled across all 5 boroughs in New York City, with over 612 positive mosquito pools detected, although no human cases have been reported. Yet. Positive mosquito pools have nearly doubled compared to last year at this time. The West Nile virus, here in America,
hastening the spread of deadly wildfires. So far in August, low water levels have beached a ship in the Rhine in Germany and forced rice farmers in Italy to abandon some of their plots to conserve water for others. This, the fastest heating continent on Earth.
Amelia Jen reporting. Well, our correspondent Andy Davis is at Blagden Lake in Somerset, which serves the Bristol water area. It's one of the top 3 lowest reservoirs in England, with exceptionally low levels of water. Well, let's go live to Andy. Andy, my gosh, that does look dry.
Yeah, Matt, this reservoir supplies billions of litres of water each year. If we'd come back here, if we'd been here in January, the water levels were full to overflowing, way above my head height. And what a different picture it is now, with long stretches of these banks exposed and the capacity dramatically down by, it's now just at 54% of what it can hold. Southwest Water has said the level's actually higher now than it was this time last year, and they insist they're well prepared. But it is, as you were saying, it's now...
Remember, 2027 is expected to be considerably hotter than 2026. Rhine water levels fall to new lows, some ship sailings halted. It's not great. A black and yellow water gauge level is now fully visible near the Calb gouging station. That's gauging station in the Rhine River during prolonged dry weather across Europe. Fallen to new lows. Cargo vessel owners have often stopped sailings on southern river sections. Inland Navigation Agency says the navigable water depth at the chokehold of Calb near Clobens was 15 degrees centimeter. I'm reading ahead. 15 centimeters on Tuesday, below the previous lowest recorded level of 25 centimeters, a full 10 centimeters lower than the lowest it's ever been. The river is about 1 meter deeper than the navigable depth. Commercial sailings through Cub have basically stopped, and it's no longer possible to book cargo shipments in the Rhine past Cub today. There's no actual rule on when sailings at Cub should stop because of low water, because it's never happened before, at least not at this level. So you could see a couple of empty vessels risking it, but most sailings here have stopped. Shallow water after this summer's heat wave and scarce rainfall means cargo vessels are only able to sail 20% loaded on the river, increasing costs for cargo owners.
One of 5 reservoirs classified by England's Environment Agency as being exceptionally low for this time of year. And across England, reservoir storage, so healthy after those winter rains, now stands at 69%. That's 11% lower than it would be for this time of year. And in July alone, it fell by, what they're saying, 16%. That's the greatest reduction in reservoir storage in July in at least 30 years. And the Environment Agency...
So no one's surprised there's barely any news of this in Germany? Of course not. Everyone is aware. Everyone who knows anything is aware that there's only one real solution to this, and it's a political upheaval that makes all other political upheavals in human history look like nothing. Look like CDC level reformism. We're talking about political transformations that would make the Russian Revolution look like it was, backed and proposed by DNC consultants. Unfortunately, since the people who run the news are the same people who have caused this crisis, they're not keen on getting people quite that hyped up.
This evening said there are now over 27 million people affected by hosepipe bans.
So there's tons of news on this in Germany. That's just not true. No. You have to understand. There is news on what is happening. There is no news on what is to be done. That's it. Listen, if you asked any climate scientist right now what is to be done, they would look at you gravely and they would, who knows? No one asks what is to be done because everyone in power knows the answer. There is no way, and I mean absolutely no way, to address this without transformational change that they would not approve of. So, all the news will be is it's hot, it's dry, it's hot, it's dry, it's hot, it's dry. Oh, it was too late. That's all we're going to get. Greta learned the answer. Look what the media did to her. Yep. Greta Thunberg was popular and internationally beloved when all she did was advocate for people to take fewer trips on private jets. Then she realized that there was no way to prevent the climate apocalypse without challenging capitalism, and all of a sudden she's an evil jihadist, anti-Semitic rabble-rouser who gets no mainstream attention or support from the government. Everyone in power knows it's the end times, they caused it, and they're trying to delay everyone's realization of it as much as possible.
You're surprised then, Andy, that they're calling for more reservoirs to be built?
Yes, and remember, you'll hear the National Farmers Union. They've been calling for more flexibility in water storage on farms and the...
See, all these changes mean nothing. They're not going to amount to anything. The underlying system is broken. The climate is broken. See, all of this, it's not... This is what I mean. They can talk about it all they want. It's not going to change anything.
England's water minister tonight said they're stepping up support in that regard. But it is something to think that the last major reservoir built in the UK was in 1992. They are planning 9 new reservoirs by 2050, but they're hugely expensive, often hugely contentious, and 2050 is a long way off, especially when you consider that the latest prediction is that by 2055, England alone will need to find an additional 5 billion litres of water.
The United Kingdom probably isn't going to exist by 2050. It will, if it's lucky, it will be a somewhat peaceful and well-sustained collection of city-states
per day to meet rising demand.
Sobering thought. Andy, thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Kieran in Leeds.
Well, amid this summer of heat waves and wildfires, no wonder there's renewed anxiety about the future of our planet. Anxieties that will only be fueled further by a major report on the state of the climate across the globe in 2025.
They're just going to cover it and cover it and cover it, and they're going to go, at some point, oh, whoops, guess it's too late. Nothing we could do.
A year of record high temperatures, increasing greenhouse gas emissions, and
How
rising
shocking, how interesting. It's a thing everyone knew was going to happen for half a century. Wow. Thanks for the report.
sea levels. The research from the
Are you predicting Scotland and Wales will have seceded by 2050? No. Those won't exist either.
American Meteorological Society paints a pretty bleak picture. Take the three main greenhouse gases that warm our atmosphere: carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, all reached record high levels in 2025. Record and near record temperatures were also reached across the globe. Europe had its
This is from 2025. Keep in mind that 2026 is leagues worse than 2025, and 2027 is going to be leagues worse than this year.
warmest year on record in 2025, with Russia, China, and South Korea all experiencing their second warmest. In the North Pole, the Arctic had its second warmest year in 126 years of keeping records. Surface air temperatures in the Arctic are rising at around 3 times the global average rate. In the South Pole, Antarctica experienced the warmest temperatures since records began there, just under 50 years ago.
The runaway climate change, global temperature increases will lead to the greater rate of sea ice loss, which will release an ungodly amount of methane into the atmosphere, which will further accelerate climate change. The world is not going to look the way that it does now in 10 years, let alone 20.
And glaciers around the world are continuing to melt, losing ice for the 38th year in a row. And this comes as many governments around the world, not least Donald Trump's America, have slowed or reversed climate policies, even as the planet appears under ever greater strain. And the UK faces a similar decision around its climate policies, as Andy Burnham is being encouraged by some to row back on them, especially if, and that's a matter for debate, they can help with the cost of living. Well, very soon, his government will have to finally decide if it's...
Wouldn't the quality of the climate bottom out eventually? No. We have destabilized the planet. Like net zero, if we achieve net zero climate emission or carbon emissions today, if we snapped our fingers and did that, global temperatures would continue to rise indefinitely, eventually leading to essentially the total melting of the poles. Pull up a picture of Venus. Yeah, I don't know how many of you guys know this, but what's happening to Earth right now happened to Venus, where the surface temperature is around, 800 degrees? It's not as though, closer to 900, my apologies. We've created a runaway cycle. The increased warmth of the atmosphere is going to lead to the emission of more greenhouse gases and a reduction in the amount of plant life on Earth that can absorb the carbon dioxide. We've created run-on effects. It's already too late. The tipping point has been passed. If all humans were to be snapped out of existence today, and it was only animals and plant life, the Earth's temperature would continue to increase rapidly from this point onward. We're already rolling down the hill. It's still very bad. +5 is foreseeable. Buddy, +10 is foreseeable. Current affairs article on this. Yeah, net zero by 2050 was always a deliberate lie invoked by neoliberals so they could gleefully rape children until they all die of old age, leaving the dead world to us. 2050. The only possible saving grace is some impossible miraculous breakthrough in direct air capture. Well, at this point, we basically have no choice but to engage in direct geoengineering. We're going to need to block out the sun. How long will we need till the dust settles? 500 years or so? Buddy, unless we engage in dramatic geoengineering and then work on some kind of carbon capture technology, some miraculous carbon capture technology, the world will never settle. The planet, Earth, will just readjust to be, on average, about 10 degrees Celsius warmer than it was before us. A permanent change that humans are not equipped to survive. All life on Earth will have to re-evolve to adjust to the global temperatures that we've produced. It will never return to what it was before, at least not outside of epochal shifts over millions of years. You said we could solve the climate problems with the technology and labor resources we have if we wanted, so what is it? Yeah, I said we could. I didn't say we would. Capitalism has to end. Sir David King, former science advisor to the United Kingdom, professor at Oxford, then Cambridge, winner of too many awards to list, and as establishment as they come, was quoted as saying what we do over the next 3 to 4 years will determine the fate of humankind. He said this in 2021. Like all grand lies, we have more time takes many different forms, often focus grouped. They are the lofty-sounding promises to reach net zero emissions by 2050, as if 24 years from now was soon enough. There are the queries of, what's your carbon footprint, as if individual people with plastic bags or straws were the problem and not gigantic multinational corporations. There's the accusation that anyone who expresses urgency is a doomer. Hello, current affairs. Hello, my chat. How nice to meet both of you together in the same room. There are those who treat climate as an abstraction to win political campaigns, first arguing the Biden admin's Inflation Reduction Act was a victory despite doing nowhere near enough to address the scale of climate change, and more recently, the Democrats should just stop talking about climate and focus on more winnable issues. Yes. Global mean surface temperature anomaly, 3-year running mean. This is going to spike upwards in 2027. With a bump coming next year and a growing historic El Nino, up to 1.7 degrees Celsius average warming, likely to cause agricultural failure and food shortages, we're staring right at the vaunted 2 degrees Celsius number. Why is 2 degrees Celsius so vaunted? Let's do the context thing again. 2 degrees Celsius will mean we've completely left the stable climate period known as the Holocene. This is the 11,000-year-old era that has given us large-scale crop and livestock agriculture, which gave us cities, written language, modern science and medicine, and warm beds and showers. Before that, for hundreds of thousands of years in the Pleistocene era, humans spent most of their time running from drought, fires, floods, extreme cold and heat, predators, and each other. Population was likely no more than a few million spread out across the planet. At one point, we may have almost gone extinct. With the advent of the Holocene and its remarkably stable climate, in only 100 centuries, the world population has risen to 8 billion. Pleistocene? All right, you dang dinosaur nerds. All right. That is what we stand to lose. In fact, if our institutions, news, and elected officials continue to feed and water the oil company conceived mega falsehood that climate breakdown is something that, quote, our great-grandkids need to worry about, human civilization as we know it will collapse and billions could die. We're not talking about the far distant future, we're talking about collapse within years, not centuries, for real. A joint study by the Institute and faculty of the Actuaries and University of Exeter suggests that a 2 degrees Celsius increase by 2050, which we are hurtling towards with no plans to slow down, could result in 2 billion deaths. And that's virtually the best case scenario, as temperature rise predictions have worsened and put 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming out of reach. According to the United Nations, in order to limit warming to 2 degrees Celsius, we would need, quote, emissions to drop around 35% by 2035. Even if current national commitments were fully implemented, they would cut emissions by only 12 to 15% by that date. The other scenario, which scientists now say recent data aligns more closely with, is 3 degrees Celsius of warming. At that level, the Exeter authors warn of up to 4 billion deaths. 4 billion, that is half the planet, in 26 years or less. Even for those lucky enough to survive the worst weather events, life as we know it would cease to exist due to war, involuntary mass migration, and catastrophic mortality events from disease, malnutrition, thirst, and conflict. According to the lead author of the report, there is no realistic plan in place to avoid this scenario. Broadcast TV coverage versus global temperature anomaly. Mentions of climate on U.S. broadcast news and recent spike in global warming numbers. The green line is minutes on ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox broadcast news dedicated to climate coverage, which, as you can see, has dropped by more than 50% since 2021. How interesting. One look at the near-perfect corollary X at the center of this graph, and it is clear something about humankind and Western civilization is profoundly and deeply broken. The revelation hit me as almost biological in its clarity. As a species, we are behaving like a pod of dolphins beaching themselves because of some kind of brain parasite disrupting their echolocation. Our ability to share knowledge and understand the situation we're in has been utterly compromised and deadly. If so many people weren't dying and going to die, it would almost be impressive. The lie in the financial markets, corporations, and billionaires that suckle on it have created a vast, highly sensitive information system over the decades, consisting of careerists, company men, and people who fear for their jobs. That system has so internalized big capital's desires that it nearly instantly responds to any threat to big capital's hegemony. And remember, by threats, we are referring to the reality of billions of deaths. Lately, as extreme weather goes into uncharted territory, broadcast and much of online and print news has been increasingly framing each freakish weather disaster as a one-off event disconnected from one of the fastest and most deadly shifts in Earth's history. For example, take this clip from an NBC News report 2 weeks ago about tornadoes striking New York City. It's remarkable for how it paints a picture of the scale of the crisis we're facing without ever mentioning what the crisis is. And there are thousands of news pieces just like it.
Tonight, this video appears to show a massive funnel cloud in New Jersey, just outside New York City. Round after round of severe weather bearing down on millions across the Northeast. This time-lapse showing the storm rolling through Manhattan with multiple tornado warnings west of the Big Apple and at least 2 reports of twisters in Morris County, New Jersey.
This is a time to seek cover in a secure place.
Man, it shot through. The storm taking out trees and blocking lanes of traffic. Look at the trees. Floodwater swamping streets in Bergen County and torrential downpours across the tri-state area.
The rain is really coming down. The radar shows that lightning is on the way and we need to take cover.
The flooding as far south as Maryland. Drivers navigating flooded streets in Ocean City. And in the south, Tropical Storm Bertha looming in the Gulf. Double red flags in Panama City Beach, Florida warning beachgoers to stay out of the water. Bertha bringing dangerous rip currents and waves up to 11 feet. Our George Solis in St. Bernard Parish, Louisiana, with people getting sandbags to protect their homes from flooding.
I'd rather take the necessary precautions that I need than have water coming in my house.
Yeesh. Well, you get the point. Pieces like this put millions of people in active danger by robbing them of the key information they need to adjust their personal risk assessment. Namely, that because oil companies are flooding the planet with heat-trapping gases, our environment is getting more and more dangerous every day. The most recent study of the energy imbalance, or EEI, the difference between the heat the Earth absorbs from the sun and the amount it sends back out into space, shows 12 Hiroshima bombs of heat being trapped by greenhouse gases every single second of every day. As recently as 2020, it was only 5 or 6 atomic bombs worth. That's how fast the crisis is accelerating, but you'd never know it by watching the TV news. Oceans are hotter than they've been since record-keeping began. Air temperatures on average are warmer than they've been in around 100,000 years. Back in 2015, the number chosen for preserving the Holocene and avoiding at least 1 billion people starving, dying in extreme heat, or storms and fires was set at 1.5 degrees Celsius, the Paris Climate Accords. Once again, for the people in the back, we have averaged over 1.5 degrees Celsius for the past 3 years. Does that ever get covered? Growing up, I heard 1.5 degrees all the time. I feel like the media never talks about this. For years, we've been over it. It's too late. We're over it. In service of the great lie, the government of the United Kingdom even tried to bury a climate report from its own intelligence agency before it was leaked. That's crazy. Blocking their own climate intelligence report. Thanks to a Freedom of Information request lodged by Ruth Chambers of the Green Alliance. Thank you, Green Alliance. Barry Starmer. Yep. Israelis are trying to colonize the Philippines. If it makes you feel any better, the Israeli war machine is going to be ground to a halt like the rest of human industrial civilization.
Going to approve, despite much vocal protest, drilling at Rosebank and Jackdaw, 2 massive unexplored oil and gas fields. Well, joining me now is Professor John Gluas, who's the Executive Director of the Durham Energy Institute.
The hell was that?
And used to work in the oil and gas industry, and Professor of Energy and Climate Governance at Manchester University, Rebecca Willis, who used to advise the UK's Climate Change Committee. To you first, John. I mean, should the UK bluntly extract more of its own oil and gas?
It's a delightful question which only ever gets half answered. We are in a position where we are using oil and gas. Where we get it from, in part, determines just how damaging it is. Yes, the climate crisis is the most critical crisis that humanity's faced. But until we do a full analysis, a life cycle analysis, we may be doing worse by buying it elsewhere. We need to
see. This is exactly the kind of discourse that is only allowed to happen because of the big lie. that continues to circulate. The idea that we're at a point right now where we can be arguing over like what the most efficient fossil fuels to burn are, we're so far beyond this, you know? Again, like frank acknowledgement of how far along we are and how doomed we really are would lead to mass panic and probably destabilize things even faster. Watch 1220 for more context in the report leaked from Britain. 1220. The hell is this? Oh, Attenshay. Hello.
So, 2025. Second Civil War successfully averted. Not going to need this anymore. You're welcome, by the way. There's just one minor problem. Critical ecosystems are at risk of collapsing if current rates of biodiversity...
I like Attenshay a lot. I don't know if I want to watch like bits from a video essay right now. This is the intelligence report from, mind you, British intelligence that the UK government tried to bury. Ecosystem collapse threatens UK national security. Spy chiefs warn. Report predicts fierce food shortages, but the government won't publish it in full. Really grim stuff. God, Starmer scum. It's not just Starmer, man.